Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Josh, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. Now, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've only just set up how I actually am going to do this. So today I'm going to be showing you how I personally make lo-fi hip-hop music. So let's jump straight into it. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to open a blank session in FL Studio. Obviously, as soon as you open FL Studio, everything is there and it's ready. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go into my sample pack that I downloaded from... Where did I download it from? Oh, for God's sake, man. Sample phonics. So we're gonna go into this sample pack. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to loops and we're gonna find a loop that we like the sound of. That could work. Okay, so we've dragged this melodic harp loop into FL Studio, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to stretch it. So you double click and right click on time and then click 4 bars. That means that it just stretches so that it fits to the click. But that's too fast. We're going to drag the BPM down first. About 105, I'm feeling 105. And then we're going to go into pitch right here, drag it down 9 cents because then it brings it back to its original pitch roughly. It doesn't matter that it's not accurate because lo-fi hip hop isn't meant to be accurate anyway. So the first thing we're going to do after we've done that is we're going to click here and we're going to assign free mixer track, make the sample sound more lo-fi. We're going to open fAzVoU's magnetic tape simulator plugin. Now, I downloaded this a little while ago and it's completely free. I'm sure it's Mac and Windows able, so you can use it in Logic and any other DAW that you can get on Mac as well. And basically what it does is it simulates tape. I don't know exactly what all of the little switches do, but I just tweak them until I think it sounds good. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to have the sample on repeat and we're just going to adjust the plugin as and when we feel necessary. First thing we're going to do is we're going to bring it down because that was way too loud. Adjust the high cut and low cut. You can adjust this differently between instruments because there are different frequencies that you're going to want to hear. Take a little bit of the low end off. We're going to take a little bit of high end down so that it just scoops the high end a little bit. You can definitely hear now that a lot of low end is gone, a lot of high end is gone, and now what we're left with is just this lo-fi thing in the middle. From here, we're going to play the sample and we're going to adjust some more parameters. Now, the tape speed, I always just decrease it a little bit. Excuse me. Awesome. So what we're going to do now is we are going to adjust these 4 knobs along the bottom. Again, I'm not entirely sure what all of them do. I know the noise knob, if you adjust that adds noise to the signal. So if I just turn that all the way up, usually I just have this very, very low down. It just adds a little bit of lo-finess. Open fAzVoU TDS, which is another very, very similar plugin. I always use this one after the other one. And what this does, it just compresses the dynamics and adds a little bit of saturation. We're just going to adjust these settings. And as you can tell, that's just slightly compressed the dynamics a little bit. We're happy with this. We are going to add drums. So drums are a very important part of lo-fi music, definitely a part that you need to pay attention to. Data Drive 80s futuristic drum pack. I downloaded this off the internet for free, fairly certain that I did it legally. And we're going to go into 808, and these are all samples from the original 808 drum machine. We're just going to drag in a kick and a snare. See, I like the sound of this one more because there's not a decaying note, whereas there is a decaying note in this one. So we're just going to drag that into kick. I'm going to pick a snare. I like this one because there's less low end, and we're going to drag that in. We're also going to pick another snare, and this is going to be our ghost note snare. Now we're going to pick one that sounds different to this one. Obviously we can't pick the same sample. I like this one. So we're going to drag that onto hat. Piano roll. Go into the little spanner icon, claw machine. Now instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got 1, 2, 3. So just adds that little bit of swinginess. Slow it down a little bit to about 95. Yes. Now we're going to change the instruments in the mixer track. So open parametric EQ, and in there should be a preset. I'm not sure what it's called. I have no idea what this preset is. I'm going to adjust the kick to start with, and we want it to sound bassy, but we don't want it to sound too bassy. Find that frequency that's around here, and then you want to just roll it off a little bit. You tell that there's a roll off the high end until it's just a low thump. Do the same to the snare drum. See these frequencies here? We want to roll those off a little bit with the low pass filter. We want to keep a little bit of those in there because that's the initial body of the snare. Now we're going to add some snare ghost notes. Little accented snare part, and what I usually do is I'll just decrease the velocity as well. EQ, go over to that setting again. So we're going to cut off more frequencies from the low end and more frequencies from the high end to make sure that it sits underneath the snare. And that's what you want, really. We're going to add some hi-hats. These two sound pretty good, so we're just going to grab this one, drag it onto clap. We're just going to go in and we're going to plug a little hi-hat beat. You want it to be nice and swung so that it goes with the feel of the ghost notes. Highlight all the hi-hats so that they're all selected. Go into the spanner tool and randomize. So I'm not exactly enjoying how this sounds. Stretch it to be 2 times the length. Bring the pitch back up. EQ the hi-hats. Same again, we're just going to roll off the high end a little bit. Add a little bit of reverb as well. It's not really that noticeable, but it just adds a little bit of atmosphere. Now we are going to go and move on to bass. For bass, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into that sample pack. So So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this E minor sample in. Before we do that, we're actually going to drag it into... Thank you. Before we do that, we're going to drag it into Fruity Slicer. So if you go into Add and then Fruity Slicer, this is just a sampler where you drag samples in and it just cuts them up. We're going to drag in this little bass line. Make sure that you go into the first pattern that you were in when you dragged it in, and it comes up with this ridiculous MIDI. So you're going to want to just delete all that. Match the keys of the bass so that the lowest note is the fundamental note for the key. I know that this loop is in C minor. Create a short loop. We're going to adjust the pitch range here until the note actually fits where it's supposed to. I think it might be 6. Okay, the handy part of it being 6 is you can pitch it up all the way or down all the way because it'll end up being the same note. For the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to go up, program a little bass line. To do that, we're going to copy the kick into the kick and then into piano roll. Just going to copy the kick because the bass and the kick are meant to go together. Now when you're doing this and you're adding the slices, all of these sounds are meant to sound exactly the same. They're not meant to sound any different in pitch because we're going to do pitch afterwards. Get that little interesting part of the bass line. We're going to use that. We're going to go into note define pitch and we're going to edit the velocities. We're going to go into note define pitch and we're going to edit the pitches so that this goes with the progression of the loop. Because of this loop here being 8 bars, duplicate the bass line to make that 8 bars as well. The actual bass note in the loop changes on either side, so that's what we're going to do with this bass line. So we're just going to keep working with it until it all fits in. Open EQ again, and it's the same again. We're going to add some vinyl crackle samples. So for this I'm going to go into my Splice folder. Splice is a great service. You pay £7.50 a month, have a set amount of credits, and you can buy samples from producers. Pretty cool things. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and I'm going to get this UTS 125 vinyl crackle. We're just going to drag this in. Adds a little bit of a crackliness over the top. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to arrange this this piece so that it makes a little section. We need to keep the vinyl crackle going through the entire thing because the entire thing needs to sound like it's played on an old vinyl player. And we're going to open our EQ. Go to the same preset that we had again, and we're going to set automation clips for both of the bands. Drag them in at the beginning so that you've got a very, very, very narrow band. It gradually comes out to be this full mix. Quite happy with how this is. We're just going to add one more element now. This isn't necessary, so if you're happy with this, you can skip and go on to the next video. And what I kind of like to do is I like to add some vocal slices. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out and we're going to find packs. Now in packs, you go to vocals, and now there are all these vocal slices. So. Give it, hey, I like this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this in. We're going to open it in Harmor. So if you go into plugins and open Harmor, and then go into imaging, we're going to drag this straight on to this image section. And so now we can play this like a keyboard. And we're going to open Picture. Now, I'm not sure how you do this in other DAWs, but what you do in this, you add your key, as is C minor. We've got our C minor key, I'm sure that's it. Auto-tunes it so that it fits the key. We're also going to click formant so that we can edit the formant setting, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to plug in a little melody and a new pattern. So I kind of like this melody. Open on our Harmony track, in the mixer track, some reverb. Just the reverb so that this melody sits just underneath the mix. Now, because there's not a lot of frequencies, we don't really have to add the lo-fi EQ, but I think I'm going to do it anyway, just for purpose's sake. I'm going to open that same EQ preset again. Modulate the gender. Gender! What this does is this modulates the formant. The last thing I want to real quickly do is go into the master track and just add a sound goodizer. Now, the reason why sound goodizer is good is because it overly compresses things. We don't even need to use too much of it, just a little bit. I think that is where we're going to leave it. If you did enjoy this video or this video format, please leave a like. Do comment anything that you do want to know, any parts of my sound, guitar mixing, drum mixing, anything. I'll do my best to make tutorials to fit all of the comments. And I'll see you next video. Peace.